What's up, everyone? My name is Alan, founder and consultant at Fornow Marketing, and welcome to Liquid for Technical Marketers. Liquid filters are one of the three types of liquid code that we mentioned in a previous video. Filters take your liquid variable and change the output, allowing us marketers to be more flexible in our personalization. Watch the full video to learn more about liquid filters. Before we get started, let's first take a quick scroll down the long list of filters provided in the Liquid Basic documentation page. So here are all the filters. There are tons of useful filters, some that I use very, very regularly, and some that comes in handy occasionally. But please take the time to look through every single one of these filters to expose yourself to all the different capabilities of liquid filters. You might be surprised to find some solutions to issues you've been having in your marketing personalization. And one thing to note is that Braze supports most of these filters, but not all of them. So be sure to cross-reference this Shopify documentation and the Braze documentation page called Filters, which is this page right here. Before we start talking about filters, let's briefly talk about a term called parameters. Generally speaking, parameters are variables that are part of a function, and the function or the filter, the liquid filter in our case, relies on that parameter to determine the output. Now, there's a handful of filters that don't require any parameters, meaning all you need to do is insert the pipeline character, the filter, and the filter just goes to work. Let's take a look at an example. Here I have a variable called name, and it's set equal to lowercase a Alan, and I'm rendering the variable by putting them into curly brackets. And let's say I want to use a filter called upcase. And this upcase filter is an example of a filter that doesn't require a parameter. I just type in upcase and it should go to work. And the upcase filter just takes my variable value and turns every character into uppercase letters. So I should get all caps Alan. And by the way, another thing to note here is that the filter can also be used directly inside the assign tag. And it doesn't have to be with the variable. So here's another way to write this liquid snippet that would have the exact same result. So let's say I created a new variable called assign name1, and then let's set that equal to Alina. And then this time, I am going to add the filter directly inside the assign tag. So Alina upcase. And then now, if I render name1, even though the upcase filter is in a slightly different place than my first example, both names should be fully uppercased. Because this time the filter went inside the assign tag, I don't need to actually use the upcase filter every time I use the variable. It's already applied to the variable. So name1 will always be uppercase Alina. Sometimes it does make sense to use the filters directly inside the assign tag. Sometimes it makes sense to use it only for that specific variable instance, just like the first example. This time, let's take a look at a filter that does have a required parameter, and all the math filters require parameters, so let's look at those. And for example, let's start with the plus filter, which does exactly what it says. It adds a number to our variable. And what would happen if we use our plus filter without any parameters, like this example? So here we have a variable called number, set equal to 7 with no quotes, so we know it's a number. And we did number pipeline plus. So now Liquid's asking, what are we adding to our variable number? Like, how much should we add? What are we doing? How much are we doing the plus filter to our number? Liquid has no idea because we didn't use the parameter that the plus filter requires. The plus filter will look for a number along with that filter that's added to our variable. So to make this example correct, we're going to have to add the parameter by adding the colon and adding our parameter or our argument. An argument is a new key term. Specific parameter values are called arguments. So the plus filter requires one parameter, and in our example, the number 2 is our argument. Let's look at another example that requires 2 parameters this time, the replace filter, which is a very useful filter that has saved my life so many times. And the replace filter replaces every occurrence of the first argument in a string with the second argument. So here's an example. So here I have a string variable called liquid status, and right now it's called liquid level beginner. And the replace filter, so I'm trying to render this variable with the replace filter, and the replace filter requires two parameters. The first parameter will look for the instances of the first argument, and when it finds that exact match, the filter will now replace the first argument with the second argument. So let's say you've been watching all the Liquid for Technical Marketer videos, and now your Liquid level is at a proficient. So what I'm going to do is the first argument, enter the first argument. It's going to look for all instances of the string capital B beginner, and then replace that with with this argument right here, which is going to be called proficient. So once again, by adding this replace filter in this order, this filter is going to look for the word capital B beginner from our value, and then it's going to replace every instance of the word capital B beginner with capital P proficient. Let's see what that looks like. If we click test, and we get liquid level proficient. By the way, the order of the parameters are crucial, so be sure to read the Liquid documentation to confirm how each filter and their parameters work. For example, let's say we accidentally swapped the two parameters. So let's say we looked for proficient first, and then we tried swapping it with beginner. So that's not going to work in this case because our filter is going to look for any instance of the string capital P proficient from our variable, and there is no instance of that. So it'll have nothing to replace, and it'll have nothing to replace with the word beginner. So this will just stay the same. Let's see what that looks like. Liquid level beginner. And for our very last example, let's go back to our math filters to see an example where we mix and match multiple filters. Yes, we can use as many filters as we want, and the subsequent filters simply follow the same syntax of pipeline characters and colons. Remember those Remember those magic math operations from elementary school? Let's try one using Liquid. First, here are the magic math number operation steps. And let's start by coming up with a number. So we will do assign my number equals 7. And then now let's start adding each of these operations using our filters. So we have my number, and we are going to multiply by 3, which in Liquid is called times 3. And then I'm going to add mix and match another filter by simply adding the pipeline character, and we're going to move on to our next operation, which is to add 3, which is called plus in Liquid. Another one, divided underscore by, and then we're dividing this by 3. And then last but not least, this one's a cool one. We're going to subtract the number from step 1 from the answer in step 4. So what we can do is we can actually do minus and my number. And let's think about this here. We are actually using the exact same original variable inside our filter later on in the variable. Notice that the filter is still happening at this point. So all these changes hasn't quite been applied to my variable, my number. So by adding minus my number filter at the end, this my number should still have the same value, which is 7 in our original situation. So this should follow the rule: subtract the number from step 1 from the answer in step 4. This is what's happening. And by the way, the answer to this magic operation is always 2, no matter what. You should definitely try it out yourself. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.